Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today, I'll continue sharing with you the latest developments in the story of single mother lythica. As you may remember, in the previous episode, little Tony unfortunately suffered a serious head injury after an unexpected fall. Fortunately, thanks to Hoai's calmness and quick thinking, along with Hung's decisiveness, the boy was rushed to the hospital just in time. The doctors worked tirelessly to stabilize his condition and help Tony overcome the critical stage. However, since he suffered a mild traumatic brain injury, he still needs to remain in the hospital for further observation. During this time, Hung, although his official leave had already ended, couldn't bring himself to leave while Tony was still lying in the hospital bed and Hoai was carrying so much worry on her own. He requested 2 extra days off from his superiors to stay and take care of them. Yet, those short 2 days were clearly not enough. Tony had not recovered yet, and Hoai continued to spend every moment anxious for her son. Hung found himself in a difficult situation. On one side was his duty and responsibility as a soldier, and on the other side was the love and small family he couldn't bear to leave behind. On many sleepless nights in the hospital, Hung looked at Tony sleeping restlessly on the bed, then turned to see Hoai sitting quietly beside him, her eyes brimming with tears though she tried to appear strong. That moment made him feel even more helpless and heartbroken. He knew that if he left now, both Hoai and Tony would be completely alone. Yet, he also couldn't ignore his duty and the discipline of his profession, the very path that had nurtured his ideals and career. So, what decision will Hung make? Will he stay with Hoai and Tony to help them through this difficult time, or will he have to return to fulfill his sacred responsibility to his work? Surely, the story ahead will bring even more moving and challenging moments. Stay tuned for today's episode to discover what happens next. After Tony's accident, blood flowed heavily from his head, leaving everyone in panic. Luckily, he was rushed to the hospital in time. After hours of tense treatment in the emergency room, the doctors managed to stabilize his condition. The wound was under control, and Tony was transferred to the recovery ward. The tense atmosphere along the hospital corridor eased slightly, yet the fear still lingered in Hoai and Hung's eyes. That night, exhausted, Hoai fell asleep on the chair beside her son's hospital bed, her hand still tightly holding his tiny one. Hung, on the other hand, could not close his eyes. He sat there, gazing at the mother and child, his heart filled with turmoil. His work was already stressful, and his leave had only 2 days left, but seeing Tony so frail and Hoai struggling alone, he felt as if his chest were being crushed. He asked himself, should he set aside work for now to stay and care for them? But if he stepped away from his duty at this moment, what would happen to their future? The medical bills were piling up, and Tony's treatment was far from cheap. He had never felt so helpless. When dawn light filtered through the hospital window, Hung quietly left the room to buy porridge and breakfast for Hoai. He wanted her to have the strength to keep standing by her son's side. That morning, after checking Tony's condition, the doctor brought good news. His recovery was progressing well, and his health was stabilizing. If no complications arose, he could be discharged within a few days to continue outpatient care. The relief in Hung's chest was immense, like a heavy stone finally lifted, at least in part. Yet, hospital bills remained a burden that could not be ignored. The costs for specialized medication and neurological monitoring were enormous. Hung wanted to shoulder it all so that Hoai wouldn't have to worry, but he knew his capacity was limited. At that moment, Hoai gently took his hand and softly said she still had a small savings at home. It wasn't much, but it could help them get through this difficult time. Hearing that, Hung's heart swelled with both gratitude and sorrow. He didn't want her to dip into those meager savings, but the truth was, he too was powerless. In the end, Hung had to use the small amount of money Tony had been gifted in the past to pay part of the hospital fees. He knew the road ahead was still long, and this money would never be enough if Tony had to stay longer. His eyes carried a quiet sadness, but he tried his best to reassure Hoai, promising that no matter how heavy the burdens became, they would get through it together. During the long, exhausting days at the hospital, Hung's heart was more troubled than ever. He watched Hoai force a smile to hide her worries, and when his eyes fell on Tony lying weakly in bed, his chest tightened with pain. The more he thought about hospital fees and mounting expenses, the more powerless he felt. In the quiet of the night, his thoughts suddenly turned to Tiu San, his only younger sister, the one he had always considered his source of comfort and support. He thought to himself, perhaps only San can help me now. The next morning, after telling Hoai to stay behind and care for Tony, Hung hurried away from the hospital to find his sister. The road to Tiu San's house was familiar, yet that day it felt endlessly long, each step weighed down by the burden on his shoulders. When she first heard about Tony's accident, Tiu San froze, her face filled with shock. She had always adored Tony, treating him like her own child. Her first instinct was to rush to the hospital to see him, but she hesitated. Her own little one at home had no one else to watch over, and the journey was far and difficult. Seeing her hesitation, Hung quickly reassured her, "Tony is recovering, don't worry too much. Just rest and take care of your child. I'll try to handle everything here." Yet even as he said it, Hung couldn't hide his unease. At last, he admitted the hardships he was facing, from the crushing hospital bills to the uncertainty at work, as his leave was running out. He confessed that, though he hated to trouble her, he had no choice but to ask Tiu San for help, to borrow some money so he could care for Tony in this critical time. Hearing this, Tiu San looked at her brother for a long moment, her gaze filled with both compassion and resolve. Without hesitation, she went into her room and brought out all the money she had been saving, small sums gathered over time from selling goods at the market, from the meager harvests of vegetables she sold each day. Placing the money firmly in Hung's hands, she spoke only one simple but heartfelt sentence. "Take this and care for Tony. Pay me back whenever you can, but don't worry about it. My child and I will manage. As long as Tony is safe, I regret nothing." At that moment, Hung's eyes grew blurry with tears. Holding the money tightly, he felt not only its material value but also the deep love and irreplaceable bond of family. That strength filled him with renewed faith, that no matter how heavy the hardships, as long as they stood together, he and Hoai would overcome everything to protect Tony. After receiving the money from Tiu San, Hung felt as though a part of his heavy burden had been lifted. He squeezed his sister's hand tightly, his eyes glistening with unspoken emotion. In that moment, he deeply realized just how precious family bonds were. Before leaving, he bowed his head in gratitude, promising that once things settled, he would repay her in full. Yet more than the money, it was her trust and heartfelt support that he was truly thankful for. Stepping out of his sister's modest home, Hung paused under the eaves for a moment, the evening breeze brushing past him, his heart still heavy. He knew he couldn't return to the hospital straight away. The more he thought, the clearer it became, he couldn't remain by Hoai and Tony's side in the hospital forever. His duty, the career and ideals he had poured his life into, was the only path to ensure long-term stability for the mother and son. If he abandoned it, not only would his career collapse, but Hoai and Tony would also suffer in the future. After many sleepless nights of thought, Hung finally chose a different path, toward the humble home of Mother Ha. In his heart, she was a kind, experienced, and compassionate woman, the strongest support he could lean on at that moment. He believed only she could comfort Hoai, sharing caring for Tony, and allow him peace of mind to return to duty. When Hung recounted everything, from Tony's accident to his gradual recovery, Mother Ha's face paled with sorrow. She pitied the little boy who had endured so much pain, and she also saw clearly the exhaustion and tension in Hung's eyes. After a moment of silence, she placed her hand gently on his shoulder, clasped his calloused hands, and spoke with both warmth and determination. "Do not worry anymore. Tony has passed the critical stage. Just a few more days of monitoring, and he can go home. In 2 days, you must return to your unit. Leave the hospital to me and Hoai. After discharge, I'll bring the two of them here to stay until things settle. You just focus on staying healthy and working hard, so you can provide for Tony's medicine and future. Everything else, I will carry for you." Hearing those words, Hung's throat tightened. He lowered his head deeply, thanking her with all his heart. Slowly, the weight in his chest began to ease. He realized that on the rough road ahead, he was not alone. Beside him were his devoted sister Chu-san, and mother Ha, who cared wholeheartedly for Hoai and Tony. Their love gave him a renewed strength, a reason to move forward with steadier steps. As dusk settled, Hung left the small house. The sky glowed with the colors of sunset, golden rays stretching across the familiar village road. He walked on, his heart lighter yet filled with determination. From this day on, he knew he had to be stronger than ever, not only to fulfill his duty at work, but also to live up to the love and trust his family had placed in him. After leaving Mother Ha's house, Hung returned to the hospital. The recovery room was still lit by a dim yellow light, quiet except for the steady beeping of the heart monitor. Tony had fallen into a deep sleep, his pale face now showing a little more color than the day before. Beside the bed, Hoai gently fanned him with a paper fan, each slow movement filled with a mother's love. When Hung entered, his eyes caught that tender scene, and his heart ached with both pity and sorrow. He motioned for Hoai to let Tony rest, and the two quietly stepped away from the bed to sit together on the long bench in the hallway. The hospital at night was unusually still, broken only by the faint footsteps of nurses on duty and the glow of lights reflecting off the cold floor tiles. Hoai turned to him, her voice soft but worried. You should have gone back to work yesterday. Why are you still here? You can't just abandon your job like this, can you? Hung froze for a moment, then let out a deep sigh, his voice heavy. I asked my superiors for 2 extra days. Today and tomorrow, but the day after, I must return to the unit. Still, my heart is uneasy. I can't bear to leave you and Tony here alone. I've been thinking, maybe I should quit my job altogether and stay to care for you both. Startled, Hoai immediately grasped his hand, her eyes firm yet gentle. No, don't ever think like that. Your work is too important, not just a duty, but your future. Tony and I don't want to be the reason you give up your career. Don't worry, I can take care of our son. He's already getting better, and in just a few more days, he'll be discharged. Focus on doing your duty well, then come back to visit us when you're on leave. Hung lowered his head, tightening his grip on her hand, his eyes filled with conflict. He wanted to stay, to shield her through this hardship, yet her words weighed on him. Hoai didn't want him to sacrifice his future for her and Tony. She wanted him to stay steadfast, strong, and true to his path. In that moment, Hung felt both anxious and deeply moved. He realized that Hoai's love was not just about attachment, it was about silent sacrifice. She was willing to shoulder the burden alone so he could pursue his ideals and career without worry. Perhaps it was precisely that resilience that became his greatest source of strength in this storm. Sitting in the hospital hallway, with only the faint footsteps of the night shift nurses echoing in the distance, Hung and Hoai finally found a rare moment of quiet to talk. The white neon lights cast a cold glow on the tiled floor, yet between the two of them, there was a warmth that words could hardly capture. Hung nodded gently, then slowly revealed what had weighed on his mind all afternoon. Today, I went to see Ha's mother. She already knows about Tony. She was so worried, asking me about every detail. She said she'll come tomorrow to visit him, and from time to time she'll come to the hospital to help so you won't be so overwhelmed. More than that, she told me that after you and Tony are discharged, you should stay at her house for a while. That way I can return to work with peace of mind, knowing you won't be alone here. Hearing this, Hoai's eyes lit up, as though a cool breeze had passed through her weary soul. Over the past days, she had grown used to bearing everything alone, forcing herself to appear strong in front of Hung so he wouldn't worry. Yet deep inside, fear still burned like fire. Now, knowing that Mother Ha would be by her side, she felt a part of her burden finally lift. She smiled, her small hand squeezing Hung's firmly, her voice soft but steady. See? Now I have Mother with me. You don't need to worry anymore. Tony is getting better, just a few more days and he'll be discharged. With Mother and me together caring for him, you don't have to be troubled. Go back to your work, continue the path you've chosen. For me, what matters most isn't that you're here every moment, but that I know you're moving forward with strength. Tony and I will always be here waiting for you." Her words were not only reassurance, but also a quiet sacrifice. Hung looked at her, his eyes filled with emotion and regret. He knew Hoai was not truly strong, yet she always forced herself to be his pillar. The more he looked at her, the deeper his love and admiration grew. In that moment, Hung realized something: love was not only about being physically close, but about trust, support, and silent sacrifice. It was that trust that bound him tightly to Hoai, giving him the strength to keep going. He held her hand tightly, his voice firm and resolute. "All right, I'll do as you say. After tomorrow, I'll return to my duty. But you must promise me, no matter what happens, don't carry it all alone. Lean on Mother Ha, and let me do my part with peace of mind." Hoai nodded, her eyes glistening but her smile gentle. In that moment, they found harmony, overcoming the unease together. The hospital night was still cold, but in their hearts rose a newfound warmth. Hung knew that when he returned to work the day after tomorrow, his heart would be lighter, for here, he had someone he could trust to care for Hoai and Tony. And more importantly, he understood that their little home, where a brave woman and a boy he loved like his own waited, would forever be his anchor, keeping him steady on every path ahead. The next morning, as the first rays of sunlight streamed through the hospital window, the doctor entered Tony's room for a checkup. After a thorough examination, he smiled and announced, Tony's condition had improved significantly, and with 2 to 3 more days of monitoring, he could be discharged to continue treatment at home. The good news lifted a heavy weight from both Hoai and Hung's hearts. At that moment, Ha's mother also arrived. Seeing Tony sleeping peacefully, she held Hoai's hand, her eyes filled with compassion and relief. She reminded Hoai to take care of herself, knowing that with Tony still so small, the burden would fall entirely on her shoulders. Her presence eased Hoai's loneliness and gave her much-needed support in this difficult time. Yet joy was mixed with sorrow. That day was the last Hung could stay. Tomorrow, he was required to return to his unit and resume work. Before leaving, he stood silently by Tony's bedside, his gaze heavy with reluctance. Turning to Hoai, he gently clasped her hand, his voice choked. "I'm sorry I can't stay longer with you and our son. But please believe me, no matter where I am, I'll always think of you both. You must stay strong." Hoai tried to smile, her eyes brimming with tears. "Don't worry. Just focus on your duty. Tony and I will wait for you, we'll always be the strong support behind you." For a long moment, they stayed in silence, time marked only by the steady rhythm of the heart monitor. At last, Hung had to leave. His figure slowly disappeared down the hospital corridor, leaving Hoai standing quietly, her eyes red but her heart filled with resilience. A few days later, just as the doctor had said, Tony was discharged. Still fragile and in need of rest, Hoai followed Ha's mother's advice and took him to her home for care. That modest but warm house became a refuge for mother and child, a place for Tony to recover fully before returning to their own home. Though many challenges still lay ahead, for now, Hoai could feel at ease. Outside, Hung continued his path of duty as a soldier. Here, she and Tony found shelter in Ha's mother's care. In this way, the invisible embrace of love bound them together, through family, devotion, and an unwavering faith in the future. That day, the village was more lively than usual, as everywhere people were preparing for Vuan, the day of filial piety, one of the most sacred celebrations of the year. At the hospital, after many exhausting days, Hoai managed to buy a small but meaningful gift to present to Mother Ha. For her, it was not only a Vuan offering, but also a gesture of gratitude, a heartfelt thanks to the woman who had given her and Tony so much love. When Mother Ha received the gift from Hoai's hands, she was moved to tears. Having only one son, Ha, her life had long lacked the presence of a daughter to confide in and share with. Ever since Hoai entered Ha's life and became close with the family, she had felt as though she had gained another daughter of her own. Gently holding Hoai's hand, her voice trembled with emotion yet overflowed with sincerity. "From now on, don't think of yourself as an outsider. I want to treat you like my own daughter. Both Ha and I love you deeply, and we hope you will always be a part of this family." Those words filled Hoai's heart with an unfamiliar warmth. For so long, she had carried the weight of inferiority and hardship, living as a single mother, raising her child while battling life's struggles. But in that moment, she knew she was no longer alone. She had found a place to belong, and a second mother in her life. A smile of happiness spread across her lips as she nodded gently, her eyes shimmering with joy and endless gratitude. In that sacred moment of Vuan, the two women, one a seasoned mother, the other a resilient daughter, sat side by side, exchanging a love that was simple yet sincere. It was not only the extension of family bonds, but also a reminder that happiness often comes from sharing, from the embrace of open arms that welcome one another as true family. Du, the man who had many times confessed his feelings to Hoai but was always rejected, never once gave up. Deep inside, he believed that as long as he persisted, one day Hoai would relent. More than that, Du was Tony's biological father, a truth that only strengthened his determination to force Hoai to give him a chance. When he heard about Tony's accident and hospitalization, Du's heart was not only filled with worry but also ignited with a fierce resolve. He saw this as the perfect opportunity to insert himself into Hoai's life. At this moment, with Hung back at work and unable to stay by mother and child, the gap left behind became the chance Du had been waiting for. In the days ahead, Du secretly planned to approach Hoai more often, using the title of Tony's biological father to stay close to them. He intended to use persistence, feigned concern, and paternal ties to slowly break down Hoai's defenses and make her waver. Yet, Hoai's love for Hung was deep and genuine, something that only fueled Du's jealousy. In his mind, one thought constantly lingered: if Hung could win her heart, why can't I, the man who once shared a child with her? This envy and obsession twisted Du into someone dangerous, willing to do anything to achieve his goal. The clash ahead would be intense. On one side, the steadfast and pure love between Hoai and Hung; on the other, Du's ambition and scheming, the desperation of a man who refused to accept defeat. The question remained: would Hoai be strong enough to protect her heart, her love, and her little family, or would she be ensnared in the web Du had set? Two people in love, yet forced to endure separation, it is truly a harsh trial that not everyone can overcome. Each passing day, Hoai and Hung live with longing, worries, and burdens. Yet, their sincere love continues to shine like a flame, untouchable, no matter how fierce the storm around them. Let us pray and send them our best wishes, hoping that the distance will soon disappear, the hardships will soon pass, and that Hoai and Hung can be reunited fully. Their love deserves to be rewarded with days of peace and happiness, with Tony's laughter and the warmth of a family's embrace. Stay tuned for the next video to discover more surprising developments in this story.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Hôm nay thì mình tiếp tục đưa đến với mọi người câu chuyện về mẹ đơn thân Lý Hoài Ca. Mọi người thân mến, thì ở trong tập trước thì chúng ta cũng đã biết là Tony hiện tại thì mới bị ngã và đang bị thương ở trong bệnh viện. Thì trong tập này thì mình đã cho đưa lên đoạn tiếp theo. Đây mình hiện tại thì vẫn đang edit và chưa xong. Mình sẽ cố gắng lên video sớm nhất có thể cho mọi người, và mình hy vọng rằng mọi người sẽ theo dõi và ủng hộ cho kênh mình nhiều hơn để kênh mình có thể có động lực để ra những video tiếp theo và hay hơn. Mọi người ơi, nếu như mà yêu quý kênh mình cũng như là yêu quý các nhân vật thì mọi người nhớ like video, sau đó là đăng ký kênh, bật chuông thông báo lên để không bỏ lỡ bất kỳ video nào mọi người nhé. Và nếu như mà ủng hộ cho các nhân vật thì hãy để lại bình luận để khuyến khích họ để có thể vượt qua khó khăn cũng như là giữ vững tình yêu với nhau. Mình hy vọng rằng là các video của mình có thể mang đến niềm vui trong cuộc sống cho mọi người. Hẹn gặp lại mọi người trong những video tiếp theo.